Hello, my name's Frank Lucas. I have the privilege of representing the 3rd District of Oklahoma, the northwest half of the great state. And along with a number of my friends, a longtime veteran of the House Agriculture Committee, let's visit for a few minutes about some of the most pressing issues affecting not only my constituents and neighbors in Oklahoma, but farmers and ranchers across the country. Right now in particular, I'd like to talk about the livestock situation. I know we are still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I realize that that's caused great hardships for consumers, but it's also caused tremendous hardship for producers, the people who raise the livestock that go through the processing plants that ultimately wind up in the restaurants or the grocery stores. A lot of my folks back home say with great sincerity that there are problems out there in how the system works, that producers are not getting a fair price, that consumers are not being able to buy food at a fair price, and they point to the middle of the chain. There's a lot of truth in that. Now first, think about COVID-19, how it affected this ultra-efficient food delivery system we have in the United States of America. Just in time, just super efficient, just a handful of facilities, turning all of the steers and the heifers and the hogs and the chickens into the wonderful products we consume in the restaurant and at home. When we had that slow down, and in some places closure of the processing plants, it literally caused a crash price for those of us who raise livestock. And it also saw the price of food consumed by our neighbors in town explode through the roof. That's not just a one-time problem. We saw that in Colorado a year ago with the fire at a major packing plant in the beef industry. So how do we respond to that? I'm working with a number of my colleagues in a bipartisan way to try and make the system more efficient. Yes, protect producers and consumers at the same time. And how do we go about that? Oh, and remember the most recent statistics from 2017, almost 83%, for instance, of the beef is processed by 4 major companies in the United States. That's a huge concentration of assets and processing. So how do we address that? Well, part of it goes from who owns the packing plants. My colleague from Ohio, Congresswoman Fudge, and I have introduced a bill to add agriculture to the subject matters subject to the CFIUS board. This is a group that's existed since the 1970s to say when a foreign entity wants to come in and buy a major asset, an industry in the United States, that it has to be cleared to make sure it doesn't impact national security. Most people think of defense or aerospace or telecommunications. We have a bill that we're working hard on to add food to that. So if an entity from outside the United States wants to buy a packer or a major slice of the packing industry or the food processing industry, they'd have to be cleared. And we put the Secretary of Agriculture on that board to oversee it. That's a step in the right direction. I'm also working with my old colleague and friend off the Agriculture Committee, Colin Peterson, on something called the Ramp Up Act. How do you make sure that small and intermediate plants can compete with the big operators? Well, one of the issues here involves federal inspection. In the United States, we have state and federal inspection of meat both. I would tell you any steak, any pork chop, any item you buy in Oklahoma that's been state inspected is just as safe and as healthy and as wholesome as anything inspected by the federal government. But if you're going to sell it across state lines, if you're going to sell it in international markets, you've got to have that USDA inspected stamp on it. And Ramp Up creates a program to provide grants to small packers to upgrade their facilities so they can qualify for USDA federal inspection. And if they don't meet the qualifications with a certain time limit, after they've taken the money, then they have to pay it back. But if they get their facilities up to snuff, so to speak, as we would say in rural Oklahoma, then that's forgiven. I'm working with more members on something called the Livestock Risk Management Education Act. How do you use the marketing tools in order to protect yourself as a producer, to make wise decisions? The people in the feedlots, the people in the processing plants, the distribution companies that take those products and move them to the supermarkets, they all use every conceivable marketing tool to protect themselves. How do we make sure our local producers can do that? Bottom line is this. There's a lot of efforts going on by myself and a number of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to try to make sure that we don't have another 2019 or another 2020 kind of a disruption. It's not fair to the consumers. It's almost killed economically some of our producers. We have to do differently. We have to do better. We're working hard on that. And as always, I look forward to the Farmers Union's support of these efforts as we persuade members who may not understand these issues as well as you and I do to support us and vote with us when we go to the floor of the United States House. Again, thank you for giving me the chance to participate and visit with you today. I look forward to continuing to work with you and with all of my colleagues in the United States House. We can do better. We've got legislation that will enable us to do better. We just have to get it to the President's desk for a signature. Thank you.